Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Steve Leibowitz, and coming up in today's newscast, the IDF and Israel security forces kill 3 Palestinian terrorists responsible for the brutal massacres of Lucy D. and her 2 daughters, Rina and Maia. Right-wing Otzma Yehudit party leader Itamar Ben Gvir threatens to quit the coalition over its response to rocket attacks. And join us for ILTV's Wine of the Week, featuring wine from the Jezreel winery. Two Palestinian terrorists who murdered 3 members of the D family were shot dead today by Israeli security forces operating in Nablus. It took nearly a month for security forces to track the cell and eliminate it. In a joint statement, the Shin Bet, Israel police, and IDF said troops entered the Nablus Old City in order to arrest Hassan Khatnani and Mad Masri, the Hamas terrorists wanted for the deadly attack on April 7th. Members of the police elite Yamam counterterrorism unit surrounded the home where the 2 terrorists were believed to be hiding and fired a shoulder-launched missile at it to flush the wanted suspects out. Armed clashes took place around the home, and the 2 terrorists were killed, along with another gunman, Ibrahim Hura, who had aided them in hiding. Israeli forces also seized 3 assault rifles from within the home. The vehicle apparently used by the terrorists was found by PA security forces in Nablus. Lucy D. and her daughters Maia and Rina were killed in the shooting attack in the Jordan Valley last month. The heartbreaking funerals touched millions in Israel, as well as the resolve of Rabbi Leo D. to remain positive after the terrible tragedy. They were dual Israeli-British nationals who lived in Efrat just south of Jerusalem after moving to Israel some 8 years ago. Just yesterday, we reported on 5 Israelis saved by receiving organs donated by Lucy D.'s family. The ceasefire between Israel and Gaza terrorists is holding, at least for now. The Hamas and Islamic Jihad terror groups in Gaza have conceded that the latest round of fighting with Israel is over. The terrorists fired over 100 rockets toward Israel that were mostly shot down by Iron Dome or fell harmlessly in open areas. The IDF responded by attacking terrorist military infrastructure, causing Hamas to accept the ceasefire pushed by Egypt and Qatar. And a stabbing attack was carried out in the town of Hawara today. A terrorist targeted an IDF soldier who pushed her away and was able to kill her with the help of another security officer. And protests against judicial overhaul renewed today, with road blockages reported at a number of central intersections. Following developments, ILTV's William Sharon.
National Equality Day protests took place throughout the country on Thursday, with demonstrations and roadblocks of key highways. As dozens of demonstrations and road blockages are expected during the day of disruption, as well as protests that will be carried out in front of the rabbinates in numerous cities in protest over the IDF draft law, which would allow exemption for ultra-Orthodox from the IDF service. The day began with demonstrations dyeing the water in the fountain in Tel Aviv's Habima Square in white as protest over the announced rise in dairy prices in Israel. A sign next to the fountain read, "Here we cry over spilled milk." While the coalition-planned legal reform has been put on hold by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, negotiations remain ongoing at the president's residence in an effort to reach a broad consensus. Yet demonstrations still found a reason to take place in the streets in the day of disruption by pivoting their focus on the protests against the high cost of living in Israel.
The first signs of a rift in the coalition as right-wing Otzma Yehudit leader Itamar Ben Gvir issued a threat to Prime Minister Netanyahu over what he dubbed a weak response to the rockets fired from Gaza. ILTV's Lidar Gravelazi with the details.
Right-wing Otzma Yehudit leader Itamar Ben Gvir announced on Wednesday his party would boycott all votes in the Knesset until Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu implements a fully right-wing policy with regards to national security. Speaking at a press conference in Sderot, a city in the south of Israel that was hard hit by rockets fired from Gaza this week, Ben Gvir said he was committed to the security of the citizens of Israel.
אם אתה לא רוצה עוצמה יהודית בממשלה, אתה מוזמן לפטר אותנו. אם אתה לא רוצה ממשלת ימין מלא מלא, אתה מוזמן לשלוח אותנו הביתה. אני מודיע כאן שאנחנו, עוצמה יהודית, לא נגיע להצבעות בכנסת עד אשר ראש הממשלה יבין ויפנים שהמטרה של הממשלה הזאת זה ממשלת ימין מלא מלא.
Ben Gvir also said that as National Security Minister, it is his duty to be a partner in security discussions. On Tuesday, after dozens of rockets were fired from Gaza, Ben Gvir demanded to attend Netanyahu's security assessment meeting, but was not invited.
ראש הממשלה, אני אומר את זה בצורה הכי מפורשת, אם הוא רוצה שאנחנו נהיה בממשלה, ואם הוא רוצה שאנחנו נצביע יחד בממשלה, הוא צריך להזמין אותנו לדיונים הללו, ולא רק כקישוט.
In response to Ben Gvir's threats, the Likud said in a statement that the Prime Minister, Defense Minister, IDF, and security agencies manage the sensitive and complex security events facing Israel. The party added that the Prime Minister is the one who decides who is relevant to which discussion, and that if this is unacceptable to Ben Gvir, he does not need to remain in the government.
And joining us now with more on the political situation is Gil Hoffman, former political reporter for the Jerusalem Post, and now with Honest Reporting. Gil, let's start with Ben Gvir. He's unhappy with being shut out of the strategic security issues. Likud says Netanyahu's prime minister, and if Ben Gvir doesn't like it, he can leave. How serious is this threat?
The threat is not serious at all, Steve. Until the budget passes, Ben Gvir has accomplished nothing for his constituents. And he can threaten, but he has no ammunition to really carry out any serious step that could harm Netanyahu. Right now, if Netanyahu doesn't want to invite him, there's not really much he can do about it, except stay on the sidelines, go to Sderot, get heckled a little bit, whether initiated by him or not. And meanwhile, the Knesset's not passing anything yet anyway.
Ben Gvir has been seen by some as a liability to the government. Would it be so bad if he were to leave? Does Netanyahu have an alternative?
Ben Gvir has 6 seats, and the coalition has 64. I don't see 3 people leaving Benny Gantz's party to join Netanyahu and save him politically. They would rather go to an election where the polls say Gantz has 28 seats, would bring back some people to the Knesset who did a lot of good work when they were in power for a year and a half. They're not going to save Netanyahu if they don't have to.
Well, the UTJ is now also threatening that if the Haredi draft bill is not passed before the budget is, they're not going to vote for it. Is their threat real?
They're not serious either, Steve. You know, right now it's a time of empty threats. I wish the threats on the military battlefield were also empty. Those are real. United Torah Judaism, their rabbis have not yet finished all their rulings, but it looks like they're all going to rule that they can wait another few months. They've been waiting for years now, and the current situation for them isn't that bad.
Well, Gil, the budget is on the docket, and there are many bills set to go up for votes in the coming weeks. They need all the votes in place. Will the coalition succeed and get the budget passed?
Yeah. Steve, absolutely. They're going to pass a budget. It's a 2-year budget. That's something that guarantees them a relative amount of stability. That's something Netanyahu initiated. They don't have 2-year budgets anywhere around the world. Maybe Porush of United Torah Judaism and Almog Cohen of Ben Gvir's party of the show of protest will vote against it. That's still 62, which is enough. And the budget is not what's going to bring this government down. What could bring the government down is if Ben Gvir in another year or so decides that he can show that he's so much more right-wing than Netanyahu and help him politically. When Ben Gvir is down in the polls right now, latest polls show his party wouldn't cross the electoral threshold. This is not the time that he could leave.
And Gil, finally, if I'd like to ask you to change hats to your role at Honest Reporting. We've covered the heartbreaking story of the D family's murder. Why does the international media have such a hard time identifying the killers as terrorists?
So, Steve, what the D family has been through has been absolutely atrocious. Leo D had to not only deal with his wife and 2 of his daughters being murdered, he then was harmed even more by the headlines that were about how they were killed in the West Bank, or criticizing him for living in the West Bank, rather than putting in the headline that they were murdered by terrorists. Well, now the media has no excuse anymore. Hamas claimed responsibility for the people who were assassinated today by the IDF. They were proud members of Hamas, which is a terrorist organization recognized around the world. There's really no excuse anymore for the international media, and yet still they're being hesitant. They're calling them all kinds of euphemisms, and the people shouldn't tolerate this.
Gil, thank you so much for being with us today.